Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, my guest is Craig McMillan, who is the president of Maple Ridge Condominium Management. Craig runs about 6,000 different buildings with 5,000 staff members and is probably the busiest person I've ever met in our industry, anyways, maybe ever. He does all of this with a really great sense of humor, so I'm really happy to have him on. Um, and today we're going to talk about a wave of retirement and staffing in our industry. And many of you might know, and probably do know, we have a shortage of managers in the industry. And one of the reasons we have a shortage is that back in the days where licensing was coming in, people were given either a limited license, a general license, or a transitional license. And after a few years, the transitional license expired. And what we saw is many of the people who held that license, senior managers who just didn't have the RCM, which would automatically push them to the general license, chose to retire rather than go back to school. And so today we're going to talk a bit more about that and where things are going. And Craig, pass it right to you. Welcome.
Sure. I'm glad I don't manage 6,000 corporations that don't have 5,000 employees. That would
Something
be
like
just
that.
ridiculous. It'd be ridiculous. It feels that way sometimes, though, right? It's interesting when you talk about the lack of managers. CMRO's recent stats really do speak to that. When you have, 40 to 60% of all limited licensed managers currently are not even employed in the industry, which obviously speaks to a big challenge in that regard, getting new people in and getting them some experience, but also. We are all getting older, unfortunately, and we can't stop that. And also, CMR's stats basically saying that, 57% of all general license managers currently are over 55 years old. So they're all going to be aging out in the next, 5, 10 years. Some of them are going to be lucky enough to go out now. If all you have to do is go on LinkedIn, you'll see multiple leadership and managers all starting to retire and age out. So I think we're going to be a bit of a challenge to get people into the industry. And I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge for everyone. But
Well,
honestly, Eric, I think we have to understand that these new people have to be given a chance.
Well, I'm finding like I'm looking for people all the time as my company grows, and what we're finding is it's easy to find people to get into the industry. Lots of people will apply for a job and will give it a shot. What's difficult is getting those people to stick around and getting those people educated and get them enough practice where they decide to stay in the industry and they become those senior people that can actually do the job well. Now, not to say that the junior people can't, but it is a difficult job. I think I've said this 1,000 times before, but you're an engineer, you're a lawyer, you're a therapist, you're a mom, you're an accountant.
Yeah.
It's a really challenging job to do well. It's
And
a
you
hard
have to
job to
give
do badly, but it's a really hard job to do very well.
You
That
have to
takes
wear a lot
practice.
of hats, right? You have to wear a lot of hats all the time. And you have to have all the answers as well, unfortunately. I think one of the biggest challenges in this industry is the time that it takes to do. This is not a 9 to 5 job, as most of us know when we get into this industry. And not being 9 to 5, it means it takes away family time, it takes away personal fun times, things like that. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for getting people to stay. An interesting stat on property management is the average life expectancy of an average manager is between 3 and 5 years, and then they're out. I've seen people who have lasted 10 years and then they burn out, then they leave. There's people who come in and 6 months later they're gone. You either get it, understand it, have a sympathetic partner who understands that you're not going to be home in the evening because you have a board meeting or an AGM to attend, things like that. So I think it is one of those jobs where you actually have to love what you do. It's not there for a paycheck, and you have to really believe that you are helping contribute to that community you serve, or those communities you serve if you're a portfolio manager.
So first thing I'm going to do is after this call is over, I'm going to have you call my wife, and you're going to explain that because you said it really well. And when I say it doesn't work as well as that, she
It's
she
got to
just
come from
doesn't.
somebody else, right? Somebody else
It
has.
has to come from somebody, yeah, who knows what they're talking about. And I don't have that clout with my wife at this point. So that's
Just
number
when
one.
your
Number
kids
two,
get older, when your kids get older, they ask you where you are. That's going to be more troublesome.
I'm starting to get that now. Daddy, where are you going? I'm
Yeah,
board meeting. Why? I don't know.
exactly.
Um, yeah, so that's point number one. We're going to do that. Point number two, with this waiver retirement, I know very well what you're talking about. Like when we go to the ACMO, the luncheons, or the condo conference, it's a sea of gray hair out there, and it's an aging industry. People got into this a long time ago, and those who stuck around stuck around. but you were not seeing a ton of new people come in and last, and that's the problem.
Well,
Some
I
are,
think
but
I think
yeah,
licensing really challenged that notion. I mean, I came from a different industry, and in my early 30s into this industry. I think a lot of people transitioned with transferable skill sets into this industry, and it was pretty easy to do. You just print the business card, says property manager, and you're
yeah,
good to go, right? Now with licensing, you have to go through this graduation education and obviously timeframes, which is now going to be 2 full calendar years. That is a barrier to entry. And so, therefore, if you are looking to change careers, you have some transferable skill sets, and you're looking to transfer to a different career. This may not be the career that you choose first because of the timeframes involved to get to that position where you actually are a general license manager. And there's not many jurisdictions in North America who have that, so that can be a real challenge. And I think that's really handicapping the industry moving forward as well. And that's why you're seeing less new people coming in who actually have transferable skill sets, but you are seeing new people coming in, but they're coming in through a different mechanism. They're coming in through either security, administration roles, customer service roles, things that are connected to the condo management industry, but not necessarily condominium management. So they're looking to use their customer service skills and obviously learn some lessons they've learned from watching the management team and the boards interact with each other.
well, it's a bit of a negative feedback loop in some ways because the more the shortage sort of gets worse, the harder the job gets, right? You've got managers, and I won't name any companies, and you know them as well as I do, where a manager's given a portfolio, and then the company will add another building and another building and another building. I'm interviewing someone tomorrow with seven properties, all of them large in her portfolio, and she's just burning out quick. And it's giving that to people, especially people who aren't really seasoned in the industry and don't know how to manage their time, just makes the problem worse because they leave the industry. And so you're
Only seven?
perpetuating the problem.
Only seven every? That's pretty good.
Yeah, but
But
large
that
buildings.
problem has always existed. I've been doing this for over 22 years. When I first started, I was short an office, the door was open, the phone was ringing, and I was saying, I better go answer that phone. And I had, 13, 14 properties at that time with no clue how to do anything. And that portfolio grew to approximately 20 properties. And it's how you manage it, right? So it's the
Yeah,
capacity of each individual person. Some people only have the capacity to manage one condominium, and that's it. Some have the capacity to manage many, many more. The problem is, can they sustain it? In the long term, and you're right, they do end up burning out because what happens is the demands of those portfolios really does depend on so many variables, whether it be weather related, project related,
yeah.
meeting timeframes, the type of properties. If they're
And
all,
just yeah, I was going to say the complexity of the property. If a condo used to be a condo, and now downtown, especially in Ottawa, Toronto, and some of the other cities, we're seeing a lot of shared facilities, a lot of really complicated sorts of things. Like I've got a property in my portfolio. It's 4 units. It's 4 commercial units. I won't name names, and they sit inside of a residential building, and the residential building is challenging to say the least. This is active, so I don't want to say too much. But that tiny little condo takes up an absurd amount of senior people's time because there's lawsuits, there's mediation, arbitration. This is something that shouldn't really exist, but it does. And that's, it doesn't matter how big the portfolio is, there's a lot of work to be done there.
yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges when it comes to what is our actual job. And when that scope is not well defined in a management contract, or even if it is, the boards believe that, anything that crosses that they'll
Anything remotely
yeah,
related
yeah, it
to
goes
property
straight to the
management.
property manager. You figure out, you get it done.
Your
And
board member is sick. Can you bring me some chicken soup? Anything remotely related.
I've delivered turkeys in the past. That's how creative it gets, right? So yeah. I mean, everyone has stories about just how insane we are.
Yeah,
We're essentially, servants to the community and to the board. But
yeah,
unfortunately, sometimes the boards do take that a little bit too far, and use us as their lackeys.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just going to ask straight away because this is meant to be entertaining. Give me some examples. What are the bests and the worst that you've hired?
Oh, so I one strikes my mind. It's a very long time ago. The person is no longer in the industry, and again, I'm going to not name names to protect the guilty. We had a manager who won employee of the month his first month here. This is many years ago, and I was in the boardroom as the it was announced that this person had won Employee of the Month, and then they won Employee of the Month for not being in the office. And
Okay.
the theory was that they were spending so much time on site helping the communities that they served, they didn't have any
It's
time
an
to be in the
interesting
office.
theory.
Yeah, it was a very interesting theory. So, on that person's desk was every piece of paper they'd ever been given, and they're all date stamped, right? So when you got to the bottom of the pile of paper, it was the first day he started. So he'd actually done absolutely zero work for the entire month that he'd been there, and we found out that he was actually online playing PlayStation games or Xbox, whatever, and was obviously terminated straight away afterwards. But yeah, it's amazing what you can get away with. You can get away with doing nothing for a certain period of time until somebody calls you out. But if you're going to win Employee of the Month for doing nothing, some people are going to be looking at you. That's one of my
Yeah, it's sort of like an Icarus thing. Like you flew too high and
exactly. You
you
did too
attracted
well.
the
Yeah,
attention.
yeah. Just show up to work every so often. How's that?
Yeah,
Now,
keep a
it's
low
interesting.
profile. Just to those of you out there who are probably not listening to this podcast, if you're those types of people, but if you are listening, keep a low profile if you're trying to do nothing. Answer an occasional email just to show that you're alive and breathing. Don't go 4 hours without, you know, doing anything because your bosses will notice. But I had a funny one where we hired a guy, and again, he's still in the industry, so I won't name anything, but hired him for a building with one senior manager and one assistant. So he was an RCM. And the assistant was new, and they weren't from the industry, but they were excellent, really, really good. Had previous experience that lent itself well to the job, and they're actually one of my most senior people now. But back then, they were the assistant, and we started getting calls. We hired this guy; he only lasted about 3 weeks, but we started getting calls saying, he doesn't really. We don't think he knows how to use the computer. Like he hasn't turned it on. It's been 2 days. He hasn't turned the computer on. He hasn't checked any emails. He hasn't answered the phone. Like he's just kind of sitting there. You're like, okay, does he talk to people when they come in? No, he passes them on to us, the assistant. I said, okay. So, anyways, we went a few more days. That assistant ended up going to a different building, and the next person came in, and same kind of story. So we tested it out. We had a resident, one of the board members' neighbors or something, just send an email. Hey, I'm looking for so and so, and I'm really looking for this specific person. No response. They phoned, no response. He lasted 2 weeks. He literally spent the entire time staring at the wall, didn't do a single thing, kind of like your guys. Now, he didn't win Employee of the Month. That would have
No.
been impressive, but did nothing. And you wonder how these people, yeah, he's still in the industry. He got an RCM, but yeah.
Well, that's great. And I guess my another good story I have is when I was hired many moons ago. Part of the hiring process here, Maple Ridge, again, 20 odd years ago, was you had to write a dog poo letter. Okay.
Okay.
And if you could write a good dog poo letter, it was an indicator that you could, communicate effectively. And this is, just as email was kicking off and stuff like that. And so they put you in a room with a computer and they had you write a dog poo letter. So I just went into the system because I came from IT and found the president's dog poo letter that he wrote,
Right.
and then printed it up and gave it to him. And he sat there and went, "This is a great dog poo letter." I goes, "It should be, it's yours." And I got hired right there and then.
Yeah, occasionally you hire someone with experience from elsewhere that you just get these rock stars and they're new to the industry, their last career, whatever, it didn't work out or they left for whatever reason and you're like, "Wow, these are really smart people." And then occasionally you get the opposite and you get someone who just has no interest in working, kind of feels that this is going to be a cushy job where you're sitting in an office by yourself, you don't need to do much and boy, is that a rude awakening when day one starts and your phone starts ringing and your email inbox explodes.
Yeah, you have to be
So what do you
agile.
think? Sorry, go on, go on.
You have
Sorry.
to be agile in this job for sure. If you have the ability to think quickly, look at complex challenges and try and find solutions, they may not be, obvious. That really does help you because we are dealing with the newity of the job every day, which is one of the reasons why many of us stay in the job is because not 2 days are similar, right? Every day you walk in, you think you've seen it all, and obviously you haven't. Something new happens, you're like, wow, that's great. Super.
Well, like I said, if you're good at this job, it really does challenge your mind. Like you can be a very, very smart person and find this job very challenging because you're dealing with people, right? And people are unpredictable and they're challenging and they're insane sometimes and they create really difficult, challenging problems.
Did you say
And
sometimes? A lot of the time, right? A lot of most of the biggest challenges we face as managers is dealing with people who are unreasonable and irrational.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
would say that's 90% of my life is dealing with challenging people. 10% might be a complicated project or a financial issue, but financials are simple. It's a numbers game. If you figure it out, you do the math and you can solve it.
yeah,
Projects can be a little bit challenging because, sometimes there's a leak and there's rotten wood and you have to figure out, how to pair that with a financial problem, whatever the case. But all of those have answers, right? They may not be pleasant, but there's answers.
it's
With
always
people,
the people, right?
that's what it
Oh,
is. It's always the people. There's not an answer that works sometimes, and you've got to figure out how do you get your best outcome.
yep,
So
sure.
going forward, like we've got a whole bunch of people in the next, I would say, 3 to 5 years that are going to be retiring. We know from the last wave of retirement in 2022, 23, salaries did go up, and that's for most managers that's a good thing. For the industry, it's a good thing because we're attracting more talent. What do you see happening in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think we're going to go through a huge change moment simply because technology continues to advance and the use of technology will continue to advance. AI is a big tool that people are using these days, obviously. It will never replace emotional intelligence. So EI doesn't replace AI, but it's something that you're going to be using. If you're not using AI today, it's probably the same as not using email in the year 2001, right? Same idea, right? You're
Yeah,
going to be left behind very quickly, and so therefore embrace the technology. Is there as a tool to make your life a little bit easier. It means it's not going to take away your ability to think. It emulates more than anything else. But if you've got a task that's going to take 20, 30 minutes to write something, and they can spit it out in a couple of seconds, use it, right? We all have a time challenge everywhere we go. Um, but ultimately, I think we're going to find that there's going to be the biggest constraint is going to be what is the client willing to pay. And
yeah,
that's where the challenge is going to be. There's going to be certain condos that just cannot keep up with those increasing costs of managers. So they're going to actually have to either curtail their demands and their meeting schedules and their expectations from that
yeah.
manager management company in order to meet those financial constraints. Or we're going to also see the opposite, where some of the bigger buildings with bigger budgets, they're going to get the cream of the crop. However, just because you got a general license, just because you're an RCM, does not make you a great manager.
No, absolutely not.
It should make you the outcomes better than if you didn't have them. However, it doesn't guarantee success, and I think that's really why you have to really look for that fit factor for people. Does this person geographically fit for your community? Will they be able to handle the challenges faced by the residents, the board, and obviously the vendors and everything that has to happen as well? I think we're actually going to see a wholesale shift when you have limited licenses going to come through. I think the biggest challenge for CMRO and the industry is that we may actually find that we actually have more limited license people than general license people before that situation corrects itself, which I think would
Yeah.
be kind of embarrassing for that agency, for because there is no pathway. You don't actually have to get your general license manager
No, you don't. You
designation,
don't.
which is the big challenge. And we really want to get them there, right? Because if they don't get it, that puts more strain onto the GLs, which is obviously a challenge.
And that's kind of the question. So you're mentioning AI, it speeds you up. It helps you do, mundane tasks quicker, and it's going to evolve, and we're going to see a lot more coming from AI that we can't even, we don't know what that's going to look like yet. But you pair that with retirement. I guess there's multiple trends going on here, and what it sort of points to is kind of what you alluded to, where the bigger buildings are getting the cream of the crop because they can afford to pay six plus figures for a manager or even an assistant manager. And the smaller buildings, the portfolio is just getting really challenged because they usually the smaller buildings don't have enough money. They buy a portion of a manager's time and they share it with other buildings. But what this looks like is more bigger portfolios for managers. You have more limited licenses. You have less senior people. The pyramid is sort of getting more and more wide, and the affordability. And so,
Yeah, sure.
you know, I'm almost seeing a world where you've got a ton of limited licenses and administrators out there, and then one senior manager who's qualified overseeing a massive portfolio with helpers, and that's challenging because the CMRO has made that it's made
Yeah,
that model tougher.
it's probably going to be where we're going to end up, and the challenge is going to be not only getting people to come into this industry, but people who want to be in this industry. Remember, we're also dealing with different generations, right?
Yeah,
So we have generations that are, boomer generations who are all kind of retiring now. Many of them are chosen to stay in. I've got many employees who are well past retirement age and they love their job, they love their communities, and they're not going to go anywhere, and they love what they do. But I don't think we're going to find as many people in those millennial and Generation Z individuals, right? Their look at work is different from what the boomer or the Gen X's are. Millennials, they're now buying houses and getting all grown up and having families and really understanding they need to hunker down and get on with it. So you're seeing more of them step up to the plate.
yeah.
But maybe not as many as what we would have wanted to see.
Yeah, the
That's
nature
what
of work has changed
for
completely, and
sure it
it's
has. Yeah.
especially with the pandemic where you're feeding this idea that you can work from home multiple days, as an administrator somewhere, you can do 4 days a week, 3 days a week from home. It's very hard to convince someone for whatever pay that they need to go into a stressful office 5 days a week and be on call for emergencies and deal with boards of directors and no HR department and all these things.
But that may
That
change.
makes it hard to find people.
But we are going to be entering looks like a recession, and with that comes a change, right? So we've not really had a recession in Canada for 40 years.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's been a long time.
so,
Yeah,
so like a real recession. Now, with all the uncertainty and the factors that are in play right now, you may very well find that we are going to be in some sort of recession. They don't last too long, usually like 6 months to 2 years or whatever, but the
yeah,
repercussions last a little bit longer. But what it does is it resets people's ability to think about what work is and what job is, and they really want to make sure that they get a paycheck to pay their mortgage or the rent or the car
yeah.
payment or put their kids through sports, whatever it is. So therefore,
Yeah,
you
I
may
got my first job during the '08 crash, and I remember I interviewed for the job, and I was offered, it was a nice company, but I was offered a very low pay because I was straight out of school, and I said no, like an idiot. And then I think a day or two later, Lehman's crashed, and I called them back, and I'm like, hey, yeah, I've reconsidered.
yeah.
They were nice enough to take me back on.
Any other jobs
Um,
around? Exactly. People don't realize. I mean, like, obviously when you look at kids in college and university, they're finding it really hard to find summer positions, and I think that's a real challenge as well. Like we bring on about 10 summer students every year
yeah,
here. To just cover vacations and stuff like that, and we'll be bringing them in from business administration courses and stuff like that,
yeah,
right? Something that's tied to it, just so they've got some exposure to what this kind of industry and careers like.
yep.
Hopefully
What it looks like, yeah.
hopefully one or two of them will decide to be a manager. Who knows?
Could be, and many won't, but that's the whole
Exactly.
point of this is a lot just choose to leave, and those who stay have a tough go at it because it is tough. And honestly, if you have a job or if you train yourself in a lot of careers now, you can work from home and you can do part-time, you can do remote, and you can travel while you work. And there's a lot of things that, new perks that exist that didn't exist 15 years ago. And again,
Yeah.
that makes it challenging for people going into university or wherever college. Those types of careers are going to attract more people than the types that you're locked into a single place. Now, again, like you said, once you have kids, the whole thing changes because you're not going to Paris for a winter to work from there or doing any of that. Your kids are in school. You need the mortgage. You need the car payments.
Yeah, for
But
sure. Another challenge in this industry is we I don't know who's thinking this way, but I know some people are, is that, what the boomers did, which was basically one career their entire
mhm,
working life. Gen Z, that ain't going to happen. Millennials, that doesn't happen either, right? So the longevity of someone in the career may only be a decade, even if they're really, into
even
it.
the best ones.
Best
And
ones will be a
it's not
decade.
just the career; it's the company too. Like I ask for resumes all the time. Like I said, as both of our companies expand, we're getting resumes all the time. And you probably noticed what I noticed that a lot of these people do 6 months at one company, 12 months at another, and they just bounce around from one to the other.
Yeah.
And those people are challenging because they come and work for you. You know you're only going to get 6 to 12 months out of them until they go smell a better deal and run off.
Yeah,
It
I
bumps their
think
pay up, but
it's one of those things when you're actually talking to these people, you try and figure out why. And
mm,
sometimes it is financial, sometimes it is simply, there was somebody offered more money and I'm a hired gun, so therefore, who
yep.
pays me the most, I'm going to go. Sometimes there's been a bad move, and there was a fit factor within an organization or a client.
There are good reasons out
Yeah,
there, absolutely.
so and sometimes that can
But
happen
if you
too.
see a pattern, if you see somebody who's done it 5, 6 times in the last 5 years or 4 years, you got to kind of wonder like, what's going to keep you at my company? Like you said, they're hired guns. They're going to go where whoever pays them the most money. And I think the same is true of the industry. They're in this industry now, but they could just as soon get a real estate license and do that or
Yep, for
whatever
sure.
else, right?
Yeah, I mean that's going to be the challenge. The challenge is especially when you're dealing with high inflation, things are going up, even though we're seeing it calm down a little bit. The real cost of living continues to increase, and so therefore, can you blame them if they want to have more money in their pocket? The answer is no, you can't.
No, you can't. Yeah, loyalty is only as good as, it serves you as well, right? To a point. And
If you
if
want loyalty,
you're
buy a dog. That's what they say, right?
absolutely. So what is the impact on the client for all these things we've spoken of, shrinking workload, higher costs? What do you see the impact is on the client here?
Well, I think the client gets more frustrated. Most of the sales meetings I go to or the business development meetings I go to, there's usually it's the same. It's either a financial issue, manager performance issue, maybe a board change and they're looking to clean the slate and stuff like that. But ultimately, they're not happy with the service that they're getting, and there really is a disconnect between what can actually be achieved and what the expectation is for clients. And even just after COVID, that's still playing out now. You're always going to get that person who can do more and they're very happy with. But ultimately, that board's expectation continues to grow and the demands of the manager continue to grow. So you have these two different forces. And then you have a change of manager, so you lose the consistency.
Yep.
And then sometimes what I've seen in the last few years is boards who have had the same manager for 8 to 10 years, who are, RCMs, general license managers, know all the stuff that they need to know, can guide boards, and boards are choosing that, we need to get someone else. And they have no comprehension that, they've got the sweetest deal in the world.
Oh yeah.
They've got someone who knows what they're doing, and has been in the job for a decade.
And knows everyone in the building, and they got to understand
And been with
if
you
you
for
get rid
eight
of that
years.
person, if you
Yeah.
get rid of that person, you might see, 6 months
Turn.
turnover for a little
Oh,
while
yeah.
until you finally get someone.
Yeah, it's going to be a
And
churn for sure. Yeah, but
yeah,
boards don't realize that they think that when we talk about it in the industry or in the press, they think it just doesn't affect them and they can get what they want, right? But you have to pay what you have to pay. You have to give them more than just compensation in financial terms. But you also have to, RSPs, benefits, all these things are
yep.
the requirements basically to work in this industry, because that's how you attract talented people, right?
Yeah, and I think you're right. The expectations are difficult to manage. When we go into a sales meeting, we're incentivized to tell them we can do as much as they want to hear. You're going to push back a little bit if you know what you're doing, you're not going to say yes to everything
Yep.
because
Sure.
it's going to fail very soon afterwards. But other people will. Other companies will come in and just promise the world and throw a junior person in and ride out that contract as long as they can. But
Yeah. And there's also companies out there who are essentially, lowering the bar to the point where it's not profitable for anybody, right? So there's a race to the
yeah,
bottom, right? And we've seen that play out for a long time. Essentially, the real costs of condominium management services have not generally increased at all for at least a decade. Like, I mean, they go up with
yeah.
inflation,
The,
but
the problem the problem is also if you go with the cheap company and they put a junior person in who doesn't care, doesn't know what they're doing, they don't train them, they're going to make a mess of things. And when they finally come back to you and say, "Hey, we need a quote again," which I've
yeah,
had happen multiple times, you're not dealing with the same building anymore. Now you're dealing with a year or two of somebody completely messing it up. Financials are a mess. Projects haven't been done. People are more and more leaks that haven't been dealt with. So you come back and you're like, well, my price is high. It's what it was. It might be a little bit higher now, actually, because salaries have gone up and you haven't done anything in 2 years. And their expectation is, no, we want to match the price we have. We just want someone to do a better job. And that's impossible. That's
yeah.
very difficult.
I've also
Technology
seen
or not.
Yeah, I've also seen when you come back, now they're looking at you through that micro glass, right? And then
100%. Yeah.
now they're wanting to micromanage you, and you're standing there going, "But we did nothing wrong. It was the other
Yeah.
company that messed you up." Just because you got fingers burned there doesn't mean that we're going to put up with this micromanagement and these multiple meetings every month that are not even in your contract. These things don't exist. But what happens is boards. act the way that they've been treated. They made the decision, they moved on to a different company. A year later, 2 years later, they're knocking your door again to come back saying, please
Yep.
take us back. This is not working out. It's been a horrible experience and we're really sorry. Oh, by the way, now we're going to hold you accountable. Not like
Exactly.
not the, for the person who didn't do the job. We're going to make you pay for their mistakes. It's bizarre.
You always know how bad things are when you're in a sales pitch and they ask you, and they start bringing up micromanagement. And, oh, we want weekly reports and we want to track your email response times and we want this. And you're like, you've had a real lousy experience. Okay, I'm gonna up my price because I know this is gonna be a mess now, whether you're telling me or not. I know this is
Yeah,
gonna be ugly because that's exactly what happens. They get burned, and instead of saying, okay, we'll pay more, we'll get a better management company, a more senior person, it's we need to be more involved. And it's hard to talk them out of that sometimes.
for sure. And I guess the other part of what's happening in industry is not just that people are retiring, but a lot of those people are currently holding leadership positions in organizations. And so the ability to have succession planning and have people ready into those roles so that you're ready for when those people retire is a huge challenge for the industry with less people in it. And obviously, then there's going to be less talented people who want to step up and become
Yeah.
a leader. Because leadership, you can be a great manager, doesn't mean you're going to be a great leader of people.
Yeah. You need those senior people around just to stop the biggest crises from happening. Like you may have a manager who's good at the day-to-day job. They might be great, but you put a really complicated situation, a difficult person or what have you, a slip and fall, whatever the case may be, something complicated that has consequences. You typically need the senior people to step in. You probably do this all the time where you're stepping in and you're just putting out what might be the biggest fires. And no matter how much you pay them and how much practice they have, you've got to have those people who understand how to diffuse those problems, because otherwise, regardless of what you're paying them, they're going to make a big mistake. And
Yes.
you know
People, they're human, right?
yeah, it's
Fallible.
it's people, and those mistakes cost you more time, more money, more aggravation. So losing that top tier slate of people is going to be challenging in the next few years. It's going to be really challenging.
Yeah, and I think one of the new leaders have to learn trust is one of the big challenges there, right? We have to have an environment where failure is accepted and we use it as a lesson learned moment, but you also have to uh, have trust so people can come to you when there is a problem, when they have messed up, when something's going wrong, so that you can deal with it when it costs less money. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
they're not afraid of their bosses that
Yeah,
they're going to
exactly. I
get in
mean,
trouble.
I tell my team I'm very good at putting out dustbin fires, garbage can fires. I'm
Yeah,
terrible at forest fires. So please come to me when it's manageable. The problem is a lot of people and inherently believe they'll get in trouble, they'll get fired, all this sort of stuff's going to happen. And so
yeah,
and when they hide the problem, it doesn't get better with time, and obviously it starts to explode and go bigger. And the other thing is a lot of people are essentially unconscious, right? They're unaware, as you said, for slip and falls. They're unaware of the time frames. Even when you get
yeah.
a claim for a small claims court, they don't know that it's 21 days to get it out there, right? To get a response back. So they're unaware of it. So therefore it lies on the desk with another piece of paper because they
Yep.
understand the
And
consequences of inaction.
your dustbin becomes a forest fire,
Very
or
quickly.
worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Very quickly.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and we're kind of out of time here, but it's very interesting what the next 3 to 5, 10 years are going to hold, because those people with those skills either need to be trained and brought up to that level, or we're going to have a situation where you have a lot more forest fires and you know, a lot less dustbin fires. Put it
For
that way.
sure.
They're going
Yeah.
to grow, and we're going to have bigger and bigger issues, and the industry becomes less attractive. And so, every time you see something in the news about a condo, you kind of cringe because you're like, oh boy, like what forest fire got so out of hand that it's making the media now, and what's the
Exactly.
impact going to be on my life and boards who read this trying to micromanage my managers now.
Yeah,
um
the challenge there is the media always focus on the negative, right? And
it
and that's
bleeds,
the
it
big.
leads.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah. So that's the big challenge. There's never any really good news and good stories. The reality is most of the industry is trying their best, do the best job they can. And ultimately, those are unsung heroes. They're not only are they helping people in their own communities that require help, but they're also, dealing with barbecues and
And they
organizing.
don't even get employee of the month because the PlayStation guy gets it.
Exactly. She never showed up. Yeah.
Last point, any tips for managers? I know you've kind of been giving tips to managers this whole time. But any last thoughts?
I would say for managers to grow into leadership positions, which is where the industry really needs you to be in a little while, is develop your emotional intelligence. It facilitates the capacity for resilience to deal with all this nonsense we deal with. It'll help you with motivation, and empathy, reasoning. All these are key components to lead people. Try and keep yourself in the top half of the accountability ladder, where you're actually making things happen, you're finding solutions, and stay as far away as being unaware and unconscious and blaming others. That's basically the best place to be if you're going to grow in this industry. And there's going to be lots of opportunity. Many people are going to be retiring. This is one industry where we are going to see a lot of demand for people, and the
Yep.
increases in salaries are going to be there for that reason alone. So I think it's got a great place
Yeah.
to be. I thought it was a great place to be when I joined it 22 years ago. I really enjoyed my time. Obviously, I'm still here. But I really enjoy what I do, but I'm somebody that really liked it. And I think as new people come into the industry or people who want to grow, there's tons of opportunity. It's one of those industries, the sky's the limit.
And I will add to that, it's, as you get more and more into the leadership role, the job gets more and more fun too. Some people find it stressful putting out dustbin fires. A lot of people find it interesting. You really get to use your mind. The smartest people would find this job challenging because it's so many different skills that need to work together to make you good at your job. And like you said before, Greg, like every day is different. There's no 2 days that you're dealing with the same problem. So for
Yeah.
those of you who do stick around, have hope. The pays are going up, the salaries are going up rather. The job gets more interesting as you grow. And I think we'll leave it at that. But thank you. That was a
Yeah,
great
for
chat.
sure. Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate the time.
All right, take care.